Excellent. Thanks very much for coming today. My name is Matt Rumbelow. I'm from Australia, if you can't tell, and we have Gary Clark, who's also from Australia now, but originally from England. We're going to be presenting today about Westfield's use of Navisworks, and particularly BIM, inside their construction planning department. Apologies for the resolution of that slide. That's just straight off the web. Westfield London opened up at the start of this month, an enormous project which we'll be looking at as far as some of the examples of what Westfield do internationally. And I think in the audience we have a few Westfield American guys around the place, and some Westfield at the front as well. So I'll do a bit of an overview of what Westfield are, certainly how we're assisting. My background is an architect, but certainly I now work for a reseller called AEC Systems. So we're an authorised Autodesk reseller and consultancy service, specialising in the BIM products, obviously through Revit, but now Navisworks, and through to a lot of other BIM-centric programs. And obviously then we'll have a look at how that's actually being utilised inside Westfield. We supply to Westfield nationally. Our offices for AEC are in 3 countries, but we'll go into that in a little time. Now, as well as the low resolution, we also had a little bit of a technical issue on our handout, i.e. we didn't do one. So you've got a handout in front of you. It'll all make sense later, so just trust us on that. So, here we are. Gary Clark is a construction planner in the Westfield Australia office, a 27-year-long construction planner, but a fairly new BIMmer, and he'll make some more comments on that later. As I said, I'm an architect from Australia, worked in London as well, just by chance, but now working for AEC Systems as a VAR and as a salesperson through the technical department, so technical sales. Just a little bit about Westfield. We've got some other animations and some backgrounding sort of promotional stuff. But yeah, basically they're a worldwide company, centred out of Australia, now control over something like $60 billion worth of projects, and Westfield London being the most recent of the developments they do. They own construct, so they design their own, tenant their own, and manage their own facilities. They have 119 shopping centres across the world, and 23,000 retailers that lease space from them. And 10 million square metres of retail space. I'm not sure what that is in feet. We don't do feet. All of the Westfields have a common branding and a common purpose, obviously to maximise the resellers they can get in, and obviously to do that with the highest possible design content. And the brands that you'll see that occupy their space are indicative of that. AEC Systems, well, we're a reseller. We certainly have been working particularly with Navisworks since before the Autodesk acquisition. So we're the most experienced of that when it comes to the Navisworks integration through things like construction. Also in the mining field, we have a lot of clients who use Navisworks in mining and resource planning and resourcing. And also moving now through into the pre-design, so Navisworks being used in architecture, and now obviously with Westfield's use of it in construction planning. I've got another animation, that's a little note for me, so just bear with us. You've all seen that one. So as slick as we're trying to be. What I might do before we just start here, we're trying to do this as a presentation of 2 halves. There's the glitz and the guts. So being an architect, my architect black on, this is certainly the glitzy part. When we finish my presentation and hand over to Gary, you'll see that's definitely the gutsy part.
Everything we have learned since Westfield founded in Sydney in 1960, and the many projects we have delivered in Los Angeles, San Francisco and New York area has gone into this center. from design and construction to the incredible mix of retailers that have joined us here through the quality service we will provide to shoppers.
I congratulate the Lowy family and Westfield on their vision.
When we came to the UK, we took the view from our research that there was an undersupply of quality retail floor space in the UK. Over 99% of the centre has been let prior to opening by a leading mix of British and international retailers, and that's a huge vote of confidence in the centre.
This project is incredibly significant to our company. First of all, it will be our global flagship. Of course, we're building it in London, which is a very special city. And we're very proud that we think that all of 50 years of our Westfield experience has gone into this centre, and it will be the most significant centre not only in London and the UK, but we believe in Europe.
So, without further ado, we'll pass over to, if I can just stop mine. Very slick indeed. Pass over to Gary. We promised that's the last of the glitz. From now on, we're getting to the guts, which is why everyone's here, about how to actually use the technology that's been around for a little bit now, through visualizations and modelling, but how much Gary, who's, as the title might suggest, a bit of an old dog when it comes to construction planning and construction, but certainly using some new BIM tricks. Gary.
Or trying to use some BIM tricks. Right, just start with this. So for the last couple of years, all we've been hearing from design people is...
Yeah.
It says this on.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It's pretty close. Go for it.
Talk a little louder.
Don't want him to ask me to do that. Go, you're
all right now? Yeah, so for the last couple of years, we've been hearing from design people, we're using BIM. Why aren't construction using BIM? And I've been to a couple of your Rivet seminars, things like this, and I've seen these kind of images. To a construction person...
Use the... Just take it off.
You can't hear me? How's that?
No, closer. It's going to help us closer.
What's about now?
Just hold it here.
Is that all right now? Is it all right? Can you hear me?
Go for it.
So I've been to some of these seminars of Rivet and BIM, and they show us these kind of images. Absolutely fantastic. But as far as construction, I don't understand that at all. And when you mention BIM to construction people, or even Rivet modelers, they tend to think that we're using Rivet, that's BIM. So I've got a bit of a simpler explanation of BIM, and no laughing. This is how I've explained BIM at Westfield, Design and Construction. So we've got a cartwheel there. Now, I've got a 4-cylinder engine in the hub of this cartwheel. That's your 2D CAD software. So traditionally, all day, that's all it's done is pumped out information along the spokes to the project delivery teams on the rim. If you looked on that rim, what have we got in the past? We've just got drawings, basically, at the end of the day. So at Westfield, we've invested millions of dollars. We've gone Rivet. So today, we have this. All right, we've got a nice, sparkly V8 engine. I talk engines because most people understand engines. But it came a point is, okay, we've got this new Rivet engine. It's fantastic, it sparkles, it's great. Everybody's talking about BIM. But at Westfield, I asked the question, what are we getting on the rim of the wheel? And all we were basically getting is drawings still. And to me, if we're only getting drawings, that means we're still only using 4 cylinders. So the question was, what are we doing with the other 4 cylinders? And to me, the other 4 cylinders is the BIM information. Because everybody's scared, especially in construction, if you mention the word BIM, it's got the word modelling in it. So therefore, construction goes, oh, it's nothing to do with us then. That's you lot. That's nothing to do with construction. So I've had to explain it this way. And the reason I've shown that wheel is because it's got 2 channels. So it's got 2 spokes. One channel is, how I see it, is the traditional way of delivery. And the other channel is the BIM information. Okay? And they tend to understand that they can get their head around what BIM is now. And this is just a little graph here. In construction, they're all worried that you're going to take their traditional drawings away from them and all this. So we've come up with this little chart here to show at the top, they still get their drawings, they still get their schedules, but BIM is additional information. Okay? Now here's my Lego. So I'm going to tell you a little story. I've got a little 7-year-old boy, and the other week we bought a Lego. So we've gone home, he's opened the box, thousands of Lego pieces in the box. And he says, how are we going to make this, Dad? So I says to him, don't worry, son, I'm a construction planner. And I can exaggerate, I said, I'm the best construction planner in the whole wide world, actually, little man. I said, wait until the morning, I'll do you a construction program. So I did. And there it is. Okay, so there's the police station of this Lego city. Fantastic, you know. Select 2 single white columns, 50 millimetres long. So I gave it to him, and this is page 78 of it. I said, here, son, come in. You can be the foreman. There's your program. So he looks at it, walks away. Like a typical foreman, he came back and said, I don't understand that. That's no good to me. What am I supposed to do? I said, take a couple of days, try and understand it, come back in a couple of days. So 10 minutes later, he came back when he had his hand behind his back. He said, Dad, at the bottom of the box, I found this. Can I use this? I was devastated. All that hard work, all that planning, and he's come out with this. So what I'm saying here today is what Navisworks does, it's Lego for adults, Lego for grown-ups. And there we go. It's not quite the same as Lego, but it's close enough. I'd say you're all pretty familiar with Navisworks, or you're pretty new.
I guess one thing is, yeah, just in the audience, who's here from a construction side or a contractor side? That's excellent. And who is using Revit, or who's heard of Revit or knows Revit in that process? We're fine then. All right.
Oh, I'll stop there then, don't I? That'll do me. Okay, yeah, so it brings the Revit model in, and it brings the construction program in. So the last couple of years, and Christian in the front here is very aware of this, I've annoyed the crap out of him for the last 1.5 to 2 years. Every day, why are you doing this, why are you doing that? And through that process, because they've been using Revit, but not really using it for BIM, for construction. There's a lot of things in the Revit models that we can't use because they're not modelled correctly. And here's just some examples of what they are. So this is basically what my son said. So when you usually issue a 100-page program, the response is normally, my God, can you summarise it? And often a construction job will go off in a different direction because a foreman or a site manager he doesn't understand the construction program, so he'll go off on his own and do something else. Okay, just before we start, I'm just going to show you the Revit file structure, Navisworks file structure. So you start off with your Revit files. So you might have, say, 4 files that make up a model. They're exported to an NWC file, which is then all linked into a NWF file. It sounds quite complicated, but it's very quite simple. And that NWF file is a very small file. It doesn't actually open the NWCs, it only reads them. And then from there, we do an NWD file, which is basically a snapshot of your Rivet model at any time. And it's that file that actually comes to construction.
And how long have they been using that now?
Who designed?
That process?
How long have we been using it? 6 months? It's all very new. I've always used it. I've used Navisworks for about 2 years now. But it's only now that design are listening to construction, because we want to use BIM. So design need to know how they have to give us this BIM. So it's only now that I'm getting NWD files from design. Whereas before it was only my own work and I would show them. And okay, so that's the general file structure for construction. So this one is for design. So you can see you've got month 1 and month 2. The good thing about that is, like I say, you can do a snapshot in time. So at the end of month 2, you can compare month 1 and 2. So from that NWD file on your right, you can make another NWF file and compare the 2 NWD files. So this is good for if you want to check your productivity, if you like. How much has the model changed in 1 month? And if you had a snapshot over several months, you can compare the first one to month 10. So you can actually see what your productivity of the model is. Okay. One of my biggest issues is the generic model, the generic family. I'm not even sure what it's called. I just know it's generic. As you can see, this concrete slab is apparently done in an in-place family, is it? In-place family with subcategory individual concrete slabs. So when you bring that into Navisworks, it can't read them.
Well,
it brings over
one big thing.
One big thing. It's got minimal properties. So if you want to try and find things in Navisworks, you mainly use the properties to find things. But if it's a generic model, it's hopeless. You can't do anything with it. So when it comes to simulation, I have to simulate the whole thing. I can't simulate the individual pores, if you like.
So that was pretty typical of how Westfield would have modelled it's modelled correctly, as in on the plans, the documentation, on the sections, it's fine.
Yeah.
Documentation-wise, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, seeing they got Gary involved now, he's made them work harder.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to Gary's team, who now have this access to this model, he's saying, hang on, that's not right. So you said you've got a chair now doing your design.
Well, yeah, I should get a chair there, yeah. They keep offering me one. Not only can I not simulate it, we are trying to use the Rivet model to take off quantities as well. And if we're using a software called Costex to do that, and if a generic model comes in, it just measures it, the whole volume as one, and it's hard for the cost planners to actually work out what it is.
Hang on for a second, Gary. We've already got a question from the audience. Sorry?
Yeah, you're saying generic model, but I'm wondering are you talking generic because of the category called generic model in Reddit, and then there's something called in-place families, and in-place families you can put any category.
The first thing I should probably need to explain is that Gary doesn't use Revit. And Gary never saw Revit until I think they
I'm no Revit expert, no.
So this is definitely an old dog with a new trick. What the issue has come about, though, is that the way of modelling things that don't quite have a category or don't quite have a family yet inside Revit, so in this case the slab structure, for the most part was fine. There's not really saying that the documentation was wrong, but it was one big slab, one big piece. So you're right, there's in-place families, there's generic slabs, there's ways of making that form that really is not going to assist Gary's team when it comes to breaking it up.
Christian?
In this particular case, it's a generic slab. But one...
It's a nested family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're still... Because in design, they're still playing with Rivet. They're trying to work out what is the best procedures to do. And it's only lately they've done this generic model, and I went, oh, I can't use that.
As Gary goes through the presentation, you'll see why. So, move to the next one.
So basically, that's the whole generic family there, whatever it's called.
Now, the reason that's no good to you, Gary, is what there?
Well, I've explained it. It's got minimal properties. I can't simulate each individual pore, and when it comes in for the quantities, it's just measured as one mass of concrete, which doesn't really work for the cost planners, because the cost planners, they're hard work. And unless it's right, they go, well, stuff that, I'll just use what I've been using for the last 150 million years. Okay, so here's another generic model. This is a parapet wall. As you can see, everything green is just one generic family or model. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure of Rivet terminology, so I've just called it as a system or category family type. So if you use these type of families, as you can see in this hose reel, I can actually select the hose.
So I guess
they work.
What we're experimenting with is the ideal ways and workflows of getting information out of Revit, feeding it into someone like a construction firm. Now, the luxury that Westfield have, and you might have firms in America that do this as well, but from my architecture background, we hardly ever would deal with the construction firms. So the plans go out. If they want a couple of animations, they can have them. Generally, the constructors don't see that. And they're working off the plans only. So how we get to those plans, and obviously within Revit it's a very efficient system. We know that there's change management, we know that there's consistency throughout the drawing package or documentation package, but how we actually model the individual items, there's no real feedback. So, we can get away with things like this. But with Westfield, because their construction division is their construction division and their design division are in the same building, although separated by, 2 or 3 floors? 2 floors. They wish it was bigger now. Gary's now interrogating that model through Navisworks, going back to those guys and saying, hang on, this is you need to improve the model. So it's not as if it's wrong, but it needs to be improved. So I guess a feedback cycle that Westfield are doing is that's why we're here for a presentation like today, would benefit the rest of the industry. The ways that they're now modelling their building for documentation is with a construction planning thought as well. So there's a slide I think you've got.
Okay, here's just another issue. The block walls. As you can see, we've got an expansion joint here, and what they were doing was just go from one end of the building to the other, putting one long wall all the way through. Once again, for measuring purposes, that's not right. For simulation purposes, I can't use that. And you can see the green wall at the back there is going across the expansion joint. And I had a big issue. I was, oh no, we can't. That's too time consuming. And then I learned there was a split tool. Split walls. So that's really time consuming, is it? You can still draw it, just split it where the expansion joint is. So now they've started to model as it is in the real world. If there's an expansion joint in a wall, put it in, put a gap there.
I mean, the great thing about Revit, and having taught Revit for a lot of beginners, we always say, model as you would build it. But for a lot of architects, they're not actually sure how they'll build it. So for things like expansion joints and zoning the building up into a construction pore zones, it's not on the documentation set generally, so they don't really worry about it. Whereas within the Westfield experience now, even the entry-level designs are now being modelled as it was being constructed, not just as it was being built.
What's my next one? So what this slide's about is, in Navisworks, there could be 20,000 objects. So my question is, where is it? Give me some idea. And what we started to do in Rivet is putting our zones in and structural blocks in. Actually, in Rivet itself. So when it comes over to Navisworks, you can't really see it on the right, but I get the properties of them. So I can go and search for everything that's Zone E or on structural block 7. It just makes looking for things a lot easier.
So they're located within a construction area?
Yeah.
Yeah, so now they're fed back into a building from day one. I think the process would be that a general building site, you'd block it up into construction zones?
Yeah, we use construction blocks, basically a pour, a concrete pour slab.
And once you set that up, then you feed that back into the design team who know how to allocate that parameter.
That's right.
Yeah.
Have you guys developed a design language between you and the architects with every future project now? They know when they're designing it to classes and areas for different zones, when it gets to you?
Well, actually, the actual zones come from the structural engineers, and then everything is based on that. So they know well in advance.
But the design language, I think, is a good one. It's basically do as Gary says. So
Yeah, that's it. Do as you're told.
If you're setting up for concrete floors,
Yeah.
what about all the other breakdowns that you're going to be using? You've got the zones for the doors, but everything that flows after that, masonry comes in when you're finished.
But the masonry is still in that structural block.
So the question for those who couldn't hear it is, it's fine for the pour, but that zone terminology is going to be used for every element in that model.
Yeah.
So whether it's hoardings or whether it's walls are all associated within that zone.
In that block, yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah. As a planner, as a construction planner, I do everything as a structural block for structure. Then when it comes to the finishes, I do the wider zone, like mall 1, mall 2, that type of thing. No, it actually makes it very good, very good. Very easy to construct. Yeah. Remember, we don't really build vertically. We build horizontally. So a zone, a block to us is like a level, if you like.
Almost like a stage,
Yeah.
in a way.
We only go up like 4 stories, but it's over a huge area.
For the standard architectural, I guess, service, most architects wouldn't do it. I know why. But because Gary's got the ability of feeding that back into the design team, it's all part of the one company. Gary can twist some arms, and design does take a little longer to do it, but of course the payoff is that in the construction phase, it's already done.
Yeah.
And I guess these are other examples you've come across where the modelling is fine for documentation purposes, but taking that BIM idea, and this is what Gary was saying earlier, BIM means different things to different people. So for the design team, BIM was a great 3D model that auto-updated all the documentation, gave them the schedules, relatively fantastic. But it wasn't the BIM that you needed.
That's right. So when it comes to measuring quantities, I've asked for no more double up. Like I say, cost planners are a very touchy species. And as you can see in this little diagram here, see the yellow. If you draw a column from the foundations to the roof, in the quantity takeoff program, things are going to be measured twice, 3 times. So what I've had to get them to do is, when you do a column, stop it at the beam or stop it somewhere. Or if you do have to take it through, you have to tell us what you've done. Because if you've got 1,000 columns and you've measured that little piece of yellow there 3 times, you're going to add a lot of cost if you're not aware that exists. Same as in the beam there where it goes through the slab. In quantity takeoff software, it measures it twice.
Now, it's a refining process. We've just been working with a few engineering firms who are going to assist with Westfield. Some of the programs and some of the ways of integrating Revit structure will eliminate some of these things. I guess the one thing to say from the outset is, again, because it was the design team who was leading the charge with this Revit thing, they're using Revit architecture. They're not using Revit structure or MEP, but that's a system they might now bring in. So some of these things will automatically be avoided. So splitting columns at levels, not doubling up in the structure. They do a lot of in-place slab edges to get the sort of detail that they need, or they thought they need. But again, it's a very fluid and being a refined process, but it's a good one to at least begin with.
Yeah. Okay, another thing we've done in Revit, this is purely for the cost planners, we were getting the Revit model coming over into the quantity takeoff program, and it was just all by your categories, your family categories, which obviously the cost planners didn't understand. So we've customised our assembly codes in Revit. And we've actually structured it as per the Australian standard method of measurement. So everybody knows where that comes from, where this list comes from. So now when it comes in, the cost planners know exactly what is what. Right.
Is a slide coming up with your wheel? So basically explain who uses what.
Oh yeah, it's coming up soon. Okay, this is the window you get when you export from Revit. The only reason I'm showing you this is the world units. It comes over in feet, and I would recommend you just leave it in feet. even though we're all metric in,
Well,
in Australia.
They're all feet.
Yeah. But we have to leave this in feet. I've got no idea why. All right. Okay, another thing we've been doing with Navisworks. Okay, you've got 20,000 objects in the model. I've got 7,000 activities in my construction program. The problem with Navisworks is you've got to manually link them. And the problem is it's like Rivet's made of all squares. The construction program is made of all circles. And there's nothing similar that you can bring them together with. Even though Navisworks got these auto rules, you have to have a common property to actually bring them together. So what we've done, we've only done this lately as well. Actually, Christian in the front has done this. We've exported it, all the objects, and Christian has given them to me at the end of the day in Excel.
So using the OBDC, and if there's questions on that, because it's a bit technical, go to Christian, the model gets extracted completely. So all the elements are extracted, which then can be cut and refined through Access.
Now, why isn't that open? Oh, there it is. So this is how Christian gives me all the objects. And they've all been... And they've been all exported from Rivet. So I take them and I dump them into my planning software. And there they all are there. The only thing I'm really trying to get out of it is these ID numbers. If I've got them ID numbers, then I can use the auto rule in Navisworks to link everything up.
So everyone's familiar that Revit, at the end of the day, Revit is a very visual database. Every element in Revit has an element ID, which gets automatically assigned. And everything, obviously, with it being unique identifier in the case of a database.
Oh,
So
no.
through Christian's work, we've extracted every single element out with the unique ID property, which then gets converted over to a Navisworks element.
You're extracting that out of Rivet or out of Navisworks?
Out of Rivet. I wish we could get it out of Navisworks, but that's something we were talking to Autodesk about. Let me just find this. Balconoman. So what that allows me to do is when I bring it into Navisworks, there they are there. And by using the ID, which is up here a bit, I can run these rules, which automatically links my objects.
So Navisworks traditionally has been used it's got an auto rule called layers, and assigning tasks by layer. Now, Revit doesn't use layers, and the layer schema, as far as AutoCAD is concerned, is fine for elements, but to break it down to its individual elements and its zones that Gary needs, the element ID works a lot better.
Quick question. Before you brought it to Navisworks, did you just bring in the Excel file into that schedule, or did you bring your schedule you had created in that other program into Navisworks?
I took the Excel file, just copied and pasted everything into the planning software. And then I work with two screens. So if you look at this one here, what I would do is I say, right, what is that slab there? What's that portion?
So for those that aren't familiar with Navisworks yet,
See, I've got an ID. So
every element has the properties associated with it from a package like like Revit. So the BIM information, the information that's the data about the data, Navisworks understands and can show and can search by. If you're not using a package like Revit, if you're just modelling, you're not going to have that data associated with it.
Yeah. So what this allows me to do, see now I've got that ID, and as you see now I've got that ID in my planning software. So now I can use that auto rule. So I've got two screens. So I want to start the construction process from this slab. I find it in my program, and obviously I can summarise it and put it where I need it. I hit the auto rule, and as I go along, you might be wondering why there's all different colours. That's just a visual thing for me to know that's been simulated. So that has, but this grey hasn't.
So okay. Yes.
Just to clarify, you're going through and manually grabbing all the ID numbers and assets
Absolutely, but it's not manual. So it's an ODBC extraction, then linked back into Navisworks. So the IDs are linking up.
It's not the ideal situation, but it's all we've got at the moment. Yeah, yeah. And there is other software out there that does this automatically, but we won't go there. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot quicker than manually linking everything up.
What do you do when you get data sets that don't have the elementary? Obviously, AutoCAD is handled to do that. What about like SketchUp or other things?
Well, the great thing
As long as it's got an ID and it can be exported, you should be all right.
But in Westfield's department, there's no SketchUp, there's no other programs, it's all Revit. So again, the luxury of that environment is that they've got 120 seats of Revit. I'm not their account manager, by the way, too, so that's not my subscription commission. But everyone's using the same tool, which means, again, they can standardise on a lot of these things.
What do you do when you get a subcontractor that has a model that's actually what's going to be built, and it's not Revit or something else? Are you spending the time to convert it?
Westfield Commission, they run their own construction department, so they don't have the same sort of subcontractor that you engage with. Do you want to explain just who are your builders?
So what was the question?
There's no real model element coming from anyone else. It's all done in-house.
Say your steel fabricator is working in Texas. They've got an entire model of exactly what's going to be built.
Yeah, then we would try and use it. But it's all very new at the moment, so we haven't actually had any subcontractors that have given us that. So it's still fairly new.
Go ahead with that. We're getting in time.
Yeah, I know.
That's fine.
So it's just a...
When you're downloading the data from Revit into your scheduling program, do you have to every time it changes, the Revit file changes, you have to re-import it?
Yeah, and this is... I'm worried about that myself. The only way I can do it at the moment is in the Excel thing, delete anything that's the same. So it's, it's just an experiment we've been working with.
Once you bring the activities into your Navisworks, you make sure they're in the proper order.
From the construction program, in the planning software itself.
Oh, you do all that.
And that's what I mean. I work with two screens.
So that takes a long time.
Well, it doesn't really take, if you can compare it to what you normally do.
But you have to take an element ID number.
Yeah, which is easy to find, and you just drag it to where you need it. Yeah, it's quite simple to do.
So the analogy, and hopefully, because we obviously spent a lot of time thinking about this, the analogy of the Lego is that when the LMIDs come into Navisworks, you sort of have a whole bin of Lego. It's a bit more organised than just a bin of Lego, but what Gary's then doing is assembling those into areas to get the construction plan to work.
Oh, what happened there? Okay, so that's that one. If you've got any questions for that, we actually have Christian here, who's in the front here.
Yeah, we'll go Christian.
Who knows all about this.
All right. Can I jump ahead too? Yeah. That's it. That's the one.
That's the one.
We probably should have started with this slide first, but we're working on it. The next presentation we do next year will be much better. This is the sort of way that the departments within Westfield, what software they utilise and how they sort of work together. And Gary, if you want to just go through.
No, you've done a good job.
No, you're right.
So basically we're using Revit, designer using Review, Navisworks Review. I use Navisworks Simulate. In costing we use Costex.
And how many people in each of these teams? Like we're talking about large departments who generally work on the same
design's a very large department, yeah. Planners, we have about 30 construction planners. Cost planners, I don't know, about 20 people.
And in the sort of history of this process, what the Revit came first?
The Revit came first, yeah.
And then investigating things like, obviously using Max maybe to take some modelling on?
Yeah. I've had a play with Max, and you'll see in a few slides of what I've trial and error, really. Yeah, I mean, for people who might not be familiar with some of these brands or some of these tools, Design Review, of course, is a free tool that's available from Autodesk. Costex is available in America, and they've got some people here who represent Costex. But all of these are investigations of what to do with this. Once you've got this BIM model, what else can we do with it?
So Navisworks was seen as a very good tool to extract more information from the model. CostX came about through that as well, because that can extract information straight from the Revit model for costings. And even last night we found out some that Vico, are now going to do the same sort of thing for 4D and 5D within Revit. So I think the investment that Westfield have put in to getting the model right, to getting the design team who are basically in charge of getting this into a BIM form, will pay off with all these tools that are now coming on board to utilise that.
But we're also going to use design review more as well. Instead of getting PDFs all the time, we're going to get DWFs.
Yeah, so that I can see on the screen, you can't quite see that, but that's the box shot of design review. So that's why. And even things like the through Navisworks with their Freedom package, so it's the free tool for Navisworks, opens up DWF. So DWF, I think, is going to probably come back into fashion a bit more. And even things like the AdaptX pen, which now goes through to design review. You can do markups and straight back again. So it's all coming together.
Okay, so why are design using Navisworks? Obviously to do markups. It's easy to move around, see problems with the model, and this is a great example here. Great big holes in the wall.
Sorry, why don't you do that inside Navisworks? That's where you do it now.
What's that, sorry?
Why don't you just do the markups inside Navisworks?
Yeah, this is in Navisworks.
Design review is used where in the scheme. So Navisworks does a lot of markup and redlining as well in a 3D form. There's also still the construction documents they can utilise in the 2D DWF.
Yeah, I've been asked that question. I mean, it depends which one you want to do it in. Yeah. But if we're using Navisworks for all this, and they've already exported it all out into Navisworks, they might as well use Navisworks for markups. So, just so we're running out of time. So, this is that compare I was talking about earlier, where you can compare two models, and it gives you reports on the right. And if you read that little legend down the bottom, obviously everything white, nothing's changed, things like that.
So that you can utilise that as almost like a milestoning. So you know, as you said, you know what's happened. Because again, the Revit model is always changing. Basically, it's always developing. It's hard to go back to last month's Navisworks Revit model. Or in this case, they've got it.
Yeah.
Sorry?
For the slab wall, we have 3 days cycle.
Yes.
2 days for the forming and
the question is basically and you've got a simulation coming up, I think, where you've actually got the piering, the individual columns being put in.
Yes, I have, yeah.
Okay. Well, do you want to grab us afterwards? Because we'll go through some simulations that might show that, but it might be easier if we do one-on-one.
Yeah. Okay, with concept design, I'm just going to show you this.
No, hang on. We said there was going to be no more glitz.
No, this is my glitz. So we commission walkthroughs, fly-throughs, and whatever you want to call them. And these are obviously done in 3D Max. Okay.
And traditionally they'd use bits of the Revit model to help with that?
Well, traditionally they would just buy the video itself, and that's it. We don't own the model, anything like that. Okay, so this is just one small section of it.
And it's a marketing type of
animation. Yeah. Okay, that's enough of that. So we had the idea, well, why don't we go and get the model?
So Navisworks allows you to also bring in max files, and the idea being that a lot of the modelling that Gary needs to see inside a project, even down to fit-outs and fittings, wasn't traditionally always in the Revit model itself.
Yeah, so we don't model furniture or things like that. So now I knocked on their door and I said, well, it's sitting in your computer, can I please have the model? Just to have a little look at it. So, like I said, normally we just buy the video, but now we can actually buy the model, It's not as good as the Max, but this is for construction, remember. But now, a foreman could walk through this and see the finishes or that have come from the Max file. Okay? So that's just a little add-on, if you like, that Navisworks gives us. Instead of just buying a video, we can commission the video and the Max file itself.
And that modelling work is a lot longer life because you can use it throughout the whole process.
Yeah. And if I'm a concept design person and I don't like something, I can always just, change the materials very easily just to have a look. Well, that one didn't go. I don't know why that's not going. Yeah. All right. But that's just an addition that we've looked at. Right.
So when it comes to linking through your timelining, because we're going up to 11 o'clock, I wanted to show that. The process of actually now staging that and getting all those elements to sort of simulate rather than animate.
Yeah, we're just going. This is Costex. This is how we use it in Costex. We're running out of time. If anybody's got any questions to that, I can open a file of that if you like, and show you how it measures it and what you can actually do with it. So anything I click on the left-hand side highlights in the right screen, same as in the worksheet. If you double-click a quantity, it actually opens and highlights the model. Construction planning, cost planning. One problem we've found with the cost planners is if we dump all these quantities on them, they don't understand the job. Because traditionally they've gone through every plan, and as they're going through the plans, taking their quantities off, they've understood the job by actually manually going through all the drawings. So if you're going to dump all this information on them, that's fine, but they still don't understand the job. So this is where Navisworks is helping for that, I've called it quantity overload. So for them to understand the job, they get the Navisworks file, and they can actually walk around to understand the job. All right? Construction, same as construction really. Navisworks is good for foremen to understand the full scope of a project, and they can walk around these projects in real time.
So you were saying before that in the traditional sense of the documentation package, how long would it sort of take you to get your head around a project? Pre-Navisworks?
We never do. But you see foremen there on plan benches going through drawings and just trying to understand what the job is. With what Navisworks gives you, the ability to walk around, up ramps, downstairs, and get a good understanding of what the job is. The other thing you can do with Navisworks, I keep talking about the properties, and another property you get is your phasing. So as you can see, everything highlighted there, everything selected is phase demolition. So I can actually walk around the job now with phase demolition turned on. So I know then everything I walk around is demolished. This is all trying to understand the full scope of the job. Okay? I'll just quickly show you that. I'm new at this tab stuff. Which one was it? Pacific Fair. What's happening?
There's always one technology glitch.
Can you actually select those phases and have it?
Yeah, if this opens, I'll show you. What's happening there?
No, it'll come back to life. We'll jump back to
Don't know. It's
the tool that Westfield use when they get into their construction planning, so the timeline, the tasking, is a tool called Asta. Navisworks was developed in the UK. At the same time as the guys were developing that, there was another team developing Asta. So the two have always had a very strong connection. And for those who have got Navisworks, Primavera, Microsoft Project and Asta are the main ways of getting the tasks into the model inside Navisworks. And then using the element ID tool to assign those tasks to the actual model elements.
So there you go. So we can go into our selection tree. You can see where I've set up, phase demolition, new construction, and all the others. I was just going to another view. I need to turn everything on. Typical. But yeah, so you can turn your phases on.
That search site is searching for a demolition property.
Yeah, it searches for a property in your find tool. All right. That's right. They've come from Rivet. In Navisworks? No.
But that's where the timeliner basically does it instead.
Yeah, the timeliner does that, yeah.
The phasing needed, I mean, I guess a lot of people are saying, well, Revit has phases, can't we just do it all in Revit? The amount of individual phases you'd need to really simulate a construction progress would be impossible. So Navisworks is why they utilise that instead.
Yeah. For subcontractors, obviously in the Rivet model, in the Navisworks file, we can turn everything else off and only have what we want the subcontractors to see. So in this case, structural steel. And he can walk around the model. It's all about understanding the job. And he can walk around and have a look. Same with the formwork.
Now, some of these modelling elements, again, you were saying before that you're utilising Max earlier on. But the formwork, the propping, the hoardings, which aren't again part of the Revit model normally.
That's our next stage. We've got this Rivet model, so we want to turn it into a construction site. So how do we go about that? And I've got some examples. I've done these formwork frames there in Max, which took me ages to do because I haven't got a clue. But the formwork was quite easy because I actually got the Rivet file myself and just copied the floors down. And then just made them a different colour. And that gave me my formwork.
So is it the thought that the design team will now start modelling those elements in, or you always add them in extra?
That might be the next stage.
We might skip through that.
Yeah. All these slides were... I've actually been waiting for something like Navisworks to turn up. Because before Navisworks came along, I used to do things like this just in PowerPoint. This goes back to the foreman's not understanding the construction program. I mean, it's very crude, but it worked very well. And that's just PowerPoint slides. Okay, the other thing we've got, this is the old way we used to show staging drawings. So with Navisworks, we can obviously print an image, and people understand it more.
So really the communication that you're able to do through Navisworks?
Yes. Yeah, is improved.
Up and down the chain?
Yeah. No, we just do architecture at the moment.
So some of the HVAC and the MEP stuff you're looking at getting into?
We have just started to use MEP now, so we'll see what happens with that. So it's just more staging. It just makes staging so much easier to explain than just in traditional, drawing over a plan. Some site establishment. This is actually a SketchUp crane. I just got on there. To show you a bit of animation as well. So in Navisworks, you can actually do some animation. This is my first ever try. This is just to see if I can make the crane turn.
So in the previous Navisworks, or in the current version, there's the animator function. So things like boom swings, maybe moving elements on and off the site can now be animated inside
There again. I was very proud of that.
You are, that's very impressive.
Yeah, round of applause. Thank you very much. Okay. Just a bit more visualisation. That bottom right-hand one, Navisworks is very good at doing sections for a project as well. Okay. Basically discuss this. You import the schedule and you do all your linking inside there. This is a simulation. which is an image of a simulation.
Is it worth for you just, I mean, most people might know, but the difference between animation and simulation, you've
Yeah.
seemed to really...
A lot of people
make it
getting
clear.
confused, what's a simulation, what's an animation? It's quite simple. A simulation has got the duration at the top. Okay, and it's based on your construction program. And it's very good to check your construction program, because you can see if you've poured something out of sequence, it's very obviously, because you're actually looking at the file. Okay, I won't show that one. Okay, and then what I've been doing is doing just images every couple of weeks and just passing them out as well as the animation. So this is what the job looks like after 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 18 weeks, sort of 24 weeks. Now, what are they? Just 1 second, that should open, yeah. That's a simulation before. What this is an animation. I'll just actually move that on a bit because it's quite long. So it looks like a simulation, but this is just done in Animator.
You also can notice in this particular one where the construction blocks, or the zoning, it's only a 2D element, but it's been brought into Navisworks so everyone understands where they're up to in that job.
And that's purely for me, really, because I want to know where I am. So I can see I'm block 18, block 19. These are talking about our blocks. And I've got excavation there. These are these big, colourful things, which I just went into Rivet myself and just had to play with that mass tool and just drew them around those blocks, just to give me the idea of...
Is there a question at the back?
How are your field people using technology in their job? Is it helping your superintendents get the building built faster and getting ROI and acceptance from that?
Well, it's a struggle get to people to use new technology.
New tricks.
Yeah, new trick. It's just it's been I've been looking at it for about 2 years, but to try and get people to even look at it, it's been very dark. People like foremen and all that, you show them, you walk around, that's great, I want it. It's more senior management, to be honest with you, who struggle with all this.
Some of our clients in Australia, again from the mining and the infrastructure contractors and builders, do use it on site. They've got laptops set up with just the Freedom Viewer. They'll go in some of the large resourcing, so Fortescue Metals mine site in Western Australia. Everyone checks the Freedom. They know where they're up to. They get issued new issues of the simulations for that project. You're not quite at the laptop on site stage for your...
No. We've got computers on site, but not laptops. All right. And that was a question you asked earlier about the individual columns. So you could see the individual columns were coming.
Yeah, the rebar.
Ah, okay, yeah. You don't have to link. So what I did there was the whole sequence of.
So the question was about simulating even just the rebar insert. So you're staging, I guess you're staging every element inside that pour. Do you have an example of, or is that left up to the contractor on site?
In the construction program, you get summary bars. So I might put that slab to the summary bar, not to the individual pour. So during construction, it's like transparent green. So it gives the illusion, if you like, of the whole duration of the whole pour, which would include the Rio, the formwork, everything. There's that way, or there's the way I'm doing it now, where I'm taking the whole Rivet model into Excel, and I can actually do each individual column if I wanted to. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you got an example of maybe even a slab pull where you've broken that down?
Maybe come and see me after.
Might be easier.
Yeah, it might be a bit easier. All right, so in here, this is a bit of a trial and error. Like I've had to play with Max and going into Rivet, copying the floors, copying them down, just to try and turn the whole thing into a construction site. I mean, we can improve on it, but you can see it kind of works. Yeah, the problem with doing Rio, obviously they don't model Rio. So I'd done this one on the right there. I brought the Rivet file into Max and then just put a modifier on that slab to give it an illusion of reinforcement.
But again, this is where the process is continually changing. Speaking to some of the construction, the structural engineers that work closely with Westfields, they're keen to now be submitting back the structural version of that Revit file, which will contain the Rio, into early on in the design phase. So you'll have a lot more elements to select from and choose from, so you won't have to go and make your own.
I mean, with all that sort of, even though I've been playing with it 2 years, I still feel it's very new in construction. So it is a lot of trial and error at the moment. Trying this, try that. So.
The question is the value. What value is there to model and rebar?
Well, there is none. No, not when I can show you that this slab takes 14 days, and it's transparent green while it's doing that. You still get the same. It's underway. So if it's green, I know formwork's going up. I know reinforcement's going in. It's only when it changes to its model colour that it's finished. So you're right, yeah. So and in that case, you link to the summary tasks. Yeah.
So you're modeling formwork and scaffolding and stuff, and why not do Revit?
Because I can't use Revit.
And I've said before that everyone was using Revit. I was a little bit misleading. The SketchUp, which we've shown Gary, as far as there's a great 3D warehouse, obviously through Google. You can convert those trucks and cranes and those sort of things directly back into Revit. So that's getting a lot easier for Gary to sort of bring those elements in. And we must say from the outset, Gary's not a CAD person, he's not a Revit person. So this is all extremely new, but as Gary said from the start, he's been wanting a tool like this to be able to communicate and show what's in his head to everybody else.
Yeah. And a lot of it is trial and error at the moment. To put it into a construction site, you know, it's, yeah. So.
Earlier on you talked about communication with the architect and as far as the slab floor being run on the wall. So is this Westfield project a design build project, or Westfield employ its own architect?
Yes. No, we are our own architects.
You mentioned you're going back to the architects and suggesting they can model better.
Yes. Yes.
Is that working out?
Better. At the beginning, it was like, oh, go away, you're from construction. But because they thought they were using BIM, because they were using Rivet. So it's only by talking to them almost every single day, I want this, I want that. You know, even to the point where I said earlier about the split tool on the walls. Oh, we've got to completely change our procedures. We've got to do, you know, how hard is it? But now they are listening, and we've got support now from senior management as well to fully BIM this job. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Westfield have. No, just all Westfield. Yeah. Same as our design department as well. It's just all Westfield.
Yeah. And in Australia that happens as well. We've got some large construction companies that don't have in-house architecture and they're rebuilding. But obviously that's wasted effort. It's doubling up. In the case of Westfield, as I said earlier, because everyone's internalised, they've their own architect, their own construction, their own facilities management, they've got the perfect BIM cycle. They could have the perfect BIM cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, we're well set for it. Yeah, I mean, Westfield are the ideal company for that because everybody is in-house. Yeah. But I understand what you're saying. If I'm a construction planner and I get a model from some architect, yeah, it make life a lot difficult. Yeah. But mind you, if you want to do a quick one, you could just use SketchUp. I mean, that's pretty simple.
I guess this is where of course, you could remodel. That sort of breaks down a lot of the inherent efficiencies of using the Revit model as it is, though. Now, again, I'm not saying that every construction or general contractor can go back to the architect and say, oh, hang on, just do that again for us because it's not quite right. But where you have the efficiencies and where Gary has shown that the efficiency gains inside the construction planning, and because also, fortunately, the boss of the design department is also the boss of the construction department, so it makes it...
Yeah, it's a bit easier, yeah. Even though it took like 4 attempts, presentations to him, to actually say yes to go to BIM.
At the back there?
Are you winning more projects and getting more owners to buy into it and beating at competition because you're...
We've got no competition.
Because that's the key. They're Westfield.
We're Westfield. We're all in-house. We
For an owner of a project, if you show them this technology versus alternative...
Oh, outside of Westfield, I would say it would be, yeah. Because, I mean, we're all in the construction industry, but if you show somebody who's not in the, like a shop owner, and you can walk them around, you're on the car park roof, and you say, this is how we're going to get to your shop. You can walk them down to that shop.
So one of the things that Gary's looking at is they've got a department that's called tenancy or leasing.
Yeah, leasing. Yeah.
And so when prospective retailers want to come into a Westfield and buy a space, lease space, they can now use this model, even with this freedom, to walk around and actually see the zone they want to get into. I was speaking to someone the other day about even things like signage and placements of signage can now be visualised, and you can see what it is there.
Since you guys do everything in-house, how about facilities management? Are you using any tools that you get from the BIM model for
we haven't gone down that. Each individual centre actually does their own facility management. So I'm not really the person to ask for. I don't really know.
But we'd like them to. I mean, obviously, they've got the data. Tools like FM Desktop, there's some other ones that are around, Catapult FM. They could certainly take that, the Revit model. They could certainly then make it into a system where the facilities manager of each individual Westfields could use that for sure. We've got 15 minutes to go. What did you want to...
Okay, well, I'm on my last slide. And this is answering some of your questions, actually. This is my wish list for Navisworks. Import Navisworks selection tree into Power Project itself. Instead of taking all the data out of Revit, I want to take it directly from Navisworks. The reason I want to do that, because I want to use the model to do my planning, not the other way around.
So the model is the Lego?
The model is the Lego. And I want to do the instructions using, I'm putting the blocks on, and I want that to be my program, not having these squares and these circles and trying to bring them together.
So you were saying before then that basically, if that was the case, if it did link directly between Navisworks and, say, Astor or whatever the program planning tool was, you'd spend the most of the time, your interface would be Navisworks. You sort of check the Gantt chart when you had to.
That's right, yeah. And it needs to be bi-directional, I've got down there. So you can export out of Navisworks and you can also import the same program. Create tasks from the selection tree itself. So to make this work, you need to be able to select things in the selection tree and say, create a task. And that will populate the construction program down.
You can, but do you want to show that as an example?
No, you've got 20,000, so you're going to do a selection set for each one. It's just impossible. Yeah.
So the other thing that you may have gathered is Gary's fairly persuasive, and so because of our relationship with Navisworks, Gary's met with those guys. In fact, I think you're well known to them now.
I'm well known to them.
So watch this space is probably what we can say. There are some changes coming about. Certainly with the integration that Navisworks now has directly with Revit, those sort of things are on the horizon. The Vico,
The Vico
alignment or agreement seems fantastic. I think you...
Well, that's right. Well, Vico, I only found out, I had a chat with them yesterday, and it might end up next week I completely dump Navisworks and go to this Vico thing.
Well, hang on.
Well, if I've been promised most of these things by 2011, but it's 2011. And I want to get on with it now, not in 2011. At the moment, I'm doing big workarounds to get over these problems. So whether Autodesk want to sort it all out quick or we go somewhere else. It's up to them, really. What's that, sorry? No, I haven't. I don't know that, no. Yeah, there's one called Synchro that actually does all this. But as a pure planner, I would go and buy Synchro. I would go and buy a software called Synchro. As a pure planner, it's fantastic. But the problem with it is it's got one trick. But that one trick is most of all of this, what I want. But it's very limited because it's only for the planner. What we like in Westfield about Navisworks is it's multitask. Everybody can use it. You know, the cost planners, the design, construction, we can all use that piece of software. Whereas Synchro is just dedicated to me. So we've been looking for a multi-use bit of software, and that's why Navisworks is for us. But they need to sort it out. Did I say something wrong?
Yeah, you mentioned Synchro, they left.
Yeah, Synchro, they've left, yeah.
I'm pretty sure we need to be out here for 11:30.
Yeah, okay. Well,
a gutsy animation to play or anything?
No, that's it, I'm done. Back to you.
Back to me. Well, the things we've got to remind people of is to fill out the feedback forms. Now, they're actually all fantastically computer generated now in Hall B. You can win a pass to next year if you do that, so that's excellent. And also, thank you. This is our first go at this sort of presentation. A few sleepless nights. But I think what Gary's doing especially, and quite willing to share, I mean, one of the things about Westfield not having a competition is that they're quite happy to share with that. As far as when I say competition, the tricks that Westfield have, they're sharing to the rest of the community fairly well. So I think there's a bit of a meeting with Walmart and those sort of guys. So
yeah.
Ask any questions. Gary's here for the rest of the week. Christian's the actual API programmer that's making a lot of these changes from the Revit model directly into Navisworks, and an ADM member as well. And there's some other Westfield teams here as well that are quite happy to take some questions. And thanks for getting through it, Gary.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Christian.